All right, good morning. Welcome to Thursday. Do you find these 4-day weeks, do you find they go quick or they take a long time? This week went quick? Yeah, why was that? Good to know when. I know. Well, sometimes I'm just saying so because sometimes I find that somehow the short weeks seem longer than they should, even though they're only 4 days. Sometimes it seems, I don't know. Clearly, you're not experiencing this, so. Anyone else? Yeah? You're so tired? It's only week 3, Victoria. With 10 more to go. It's okay. We'll make it through. Let me say good morning to some people. Some people here. Awais is here. Good morning, Awais. Hamad is here. Good morning, Hamad. Zartaj is here. Good morning to you. Sean is here. Good morning, Sean. Elizabeth is here. Good morning to you. And Basil's here. Morning, Basil. Okay. Good morning. So yesterday we had started talking about oppression and power, right? And I sort of started this off by talking about the North Shore High School as kind of a context in which we could talk about oppression and power, and we'll come back to the sort of Mean Girls example in just a few minutes. I at the beginning, I just sort of introduced this idea of binary opposites, right? The idea that society really likes to put things into one category or another, right? And usually those categories are opposing, right? And so, again, you've got men and women, you've got boys and girls, you've got up and down, black and white, good and bad, heroes and villains, hot and cold, whatever, right? We really like to do this, and we'll come back to it a few times, but I wanted to point out that, of course, these two boxes are kind of imaginary in many cases, right? So society kind of creates them on their own just so they can categorize things. And also they tend not to really reflect reality. And so no one thing really fits perfectly into one box or another, right? There's always lots of variation, but we'll come back to that in a bit. Yeah, so that was a little more the binary opposition thing. Yeah, and so we defined oppression yesterday as this, and so it was kind of a societal level thing, right? So it's not something that we don't talk about oppression in terms of individual interactions, but, and it's important to know this as well, those individual interactions exist within a context, right? And sometimes that context is an oppressive relationship, right, within a society. And so the oppression that exists in society can kind of influence people's interactions, okay? So it has an influence, but it's not the same thing, okay? So oppression kind of happens up here at the societal level. It doesn't really happen between individuals, but it affects that interaction between individuals. That may not make sense. I will explain it as we go. So what oppression is then is a relationship, right, between two groups, a dominant group, a group with power in society, and a minoritized group, ones with less power or without power, right? And this oppression kind of happens in a lot of different ways, and that's kind of one of the reasons why it's difficult to understand, and it's one of the reasons why it's difficult to overcome or to get past or to fix, right? If people were just being mean to other people, we could just tell them to stop being mean and then we'd be done, right? We would have solved it. But as you can see, oppression has a lot of pieces or elements to it, right? And so the way that society, the policies that society has, the way society does things, the beliefs and values that society holds, the norms that society teaches to people, the way we talk about certain things, all of those kind of work to create an environment that benefits some people and that denies benefits to others, right? And the other thing we said is that, sorry, I'll just jump ahead and then I'll go back. Oppression happens when one group has power, right? And so here we're talking about legal authority, so control of legal system, when they have sort of historical, if they've historically had authority or power in the past, if they have social power, good morning, if they have social power, if they kind of control the media and culture and sort of what's cool and what's not cool, and institutional power. Does this group control, again, the media, the government, law enforcement, religion, right? Are they the heads of families, right? And so the more one group has control of these institutions, the more they can use those institutions to their benefit, right? And I'll try to give you examples of that as we go along. But again, this is why oppressions are so complicated, and this is why they're difficult to fix, because the problem is everywhere, right? And so I made this nifty little chart for you, although now that I look at it, I feel like the text is a little bit small, but well. And it kind of lays out these relationships within a Western context. And so I mentioned yesterday, of course, that if you go to another country, if you go to China, for instance, this doesn't really work, right? The dominant group in China is not white people, it's Chinese people, right? It's China. And so these kind of relationships depend on where you go, right? So in different countries, different groups have power, right? Good morning, Jesse. Yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Yesterday I asked you to read this article, and even though it was kind of a so-so article, it had lots of good stuff in it for us to learn and to talk about. Okay, so I just want to review those questions before we go any further. One of the easy ways to kind of think about this and remember it is that there's kind of three pieces, and the article starts off talking about this. The article starts talking about this, the three components: a knowledge, and an affective, and a behavioral, right? So there's a think, and a feel, and a do, right? And those that will help us kind of remember the difference between these things, right? Because the stereotype is the knowledge part, right? That's the knowing. And what did we say a stereotype was? Say that first part again.
A behavior towards someone based on their physical characteristics.
Not quite. You're half right. What? So, Rafay, you've got the based on physical characteristics. That's correct. That piece. What can we kind of add in there? Nope, not yet. What do you mean cultural background? Right. So based on our what we see, right? We see people, and that kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? That makes us think that we can tell something about them, right? Maybe it's their cultural background, maybe it's their religion, maybe it's their sexuality, right? We get information with our eyes, and it's like, oh, I see what you look like, and now I think I know something about you, right? And again, that may be true, right? You may actually know something about them, or it may not be, right? But that's kind of how stereotypes work, right? We see something, and then we think we know something. And so, what were some stereotypes that we were talking about yesterday, or new ones that you know about?
Individual and group.
Oh yeah, there's individual and group stereotypes. Let's talk more about the group ones. The individual ones probably won't come up very much, but let's talk about the group ones. What are some group stereotypes that we know about? You don't have to believe them, but do you know them?
When you look at someone and they're in a certain group, so it's like you just get some information that they might
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right? So you see that somebody is a member of a certain group, you have ideas about what this group is like, and therefore you think, okay, I know what this person is like, right? What are your stereotypes about Canadians? Did you have any before coming here? They're what? They're really nice and they. Oh, oh, and they always say thank you. Yeah, I guess we kind of do, right? Thank you for that answer. Yeah. We say sorry a lot too. We apologize for a lot of things. What's that? We say a, right? These are not bad stereotypes to have, I guess. Good morning.
Stereotypes are bad things or can
They are what?
bad things or can
Nope. They can be, so stereotypes, um, the question of are stereotypes bad, that's another question, right? But can you have good stereotypes and bad ones? Yes. Yeah. So I mean, we talked yesterday about the stereotype that, Asian people are good at math. That's not a bad stereotype, right? You think people are good at something, right? Which is somewhat complimentary, I guess. It's not true, right? Not every Asian person is good at math, but it's and for Canadians too, some of those things are nice, right? That we're polite and we say thank you and we're nice people. That's a great stereotype. I like having people think of us that way, right? Not all of us are that way all the time, but that's not a bad stereotype, right? So stereotypes can be sort of positive, right? They can say something positive about a group or they can say something negative about a group, but usually they are, yeah, they can be either one, or they can just be kind of neutral, right? So the Canadians say a lot. That's kind of neither good nor bad. It's just kind of there, right? So yeah, stereotypes tell us something about the world or people around us, right? I see you with my eyes, therefore, and I see something about you, or I see that you belong to a group, and because I think I know something about that group, I can think that I know something about you. But prejudice is different, right? Because prejudice is the affective part. Prejudice is the feel, right? So again, if we talk about the idea that Canadians say a lot, that's not really a prejudicial idea, right? It's like nobody cares. It's not a. Nobody has a strong feeling either way.
the British people are racist.
Is that a prejudicial idea?
I think
Okay. So it could be a stereotype that, let's say, okay, so British people are racist, right? So what's that? Maybe. Maybe it's a fact, right? For some British people it certainly is. Um, One of the things that we should always keep in mind, and I'm sure you know this already, is that you know stereotypes are just that, right? They're ideas, and even though there might be a grain of truth to them, they don't apply to everybody, right? And we kind of, I think we instinctively know that, right? But yeah, let's come back to that in just a minute. I'm going to press pause on it if that's okay with you. Yeah. So the prejudice is the feeling thing, right? So, do you have a certain positive or negative feeling about a group based on the stereotypes that you know, right? So, when I go traveling, right, and good morning, maybe I put a Canadian flag on my backpack because lots of us Canadians do that sort of thing. If I do that, then I'm hoping that people know stereotypes about Canadians. I hope they know that we are nice people, and I'm hoping that they will be positively prejudiced toward me, right? I'm hoping that they will say, "Oh, look, a Canadian. Canadians are so nice. Let's be nice to him." That's kind of what we're hoping, right? We're hoping that people will be positively prejudiced towards us, right? That's really the reason why we wear Canadian flags on our backpack all the time, right? Do you see Americans wearing flags on their backpack that often? Sometimes, right? But people have I think more complex stereotypes about the US, right? And some people like the US and some people do not, right? And so I think Americans are less likely to wear their flag when they go traveling because they never know if people will be positively or negatively prejudiced towards them, right? Canada, I think we're like the golden retriever of countries, right? Most people think we're okay and we're friendly, I think. So yeah, so prejudice can work both ways as well, right? It can be positive or it can be negative. In this experiment with the school kids, they did a little experiment with prejudice, right? What did they do? What did this teacher do as an experiment? Told the brown-eyed students that they are smarter, right? Brown-eyed kids are really smart. Blue-eyed kids, oh boy, not so good, right? And again, what happened? Yeah, so the prejudicial ideas, people started acting them out. The brown-eyed kids' test scores went up on average. The blue-eyed kids' scores went down, right? And so sometimes when these ideas start to circulate, people start to absorb them, right? And they start to feel that they're true, even though it might not be beneficial to them. We saw that in Mean Girls, right? Regina was such a strong kind of agent of socialization. Katie was absorbing messages from her and she was starting to kind of act them out, even though she was trying to destroy Regina in the process, right? And again, you would think that wouldn't happen, right? You would think, oh, she doesn't like Regina, she'll never become like her, but indeed she does, right? And it happens here in the class as well, right? The students absorb those social messages. They're really young, they're young kids. They absorb those social messages and then they start to feel that they are true, right? Which again is not surprising either, because a lot of the things that, we socially construct our reality, right? We said that right at the beginning of the course. And so things that everyone believes to be true are basically true, or at least they work as if they're true. You know what I mean? So Malika, this is back to your point about why stereotypes remain stable over time, right? And what did you say just a couple of minutes ago? Right. And so, is that true? Well, again, there is some truth to it. Some certainly are, but we know instinctively that not everyone is, right? And that would be ridiculous, right? We know that not every single British person is racist. Some are, but what happens? Well, we were talking yesterday about confirmation bias, and what is that?
Your brain will ignore everything else apart from the truth, like what you believe.
Yeah, so the things that you believe, your brain will kind of start to pay more attention to, and it will start to look for things that confirm what you already believe, and things that you encounter that conflict with that, you'll kind of ignore them, or not pay attention to them, or forget about them, right? And again, we all do this. This is just a way that our brain works, but it's important to keep in mind, right? And it's especially important to use our critical thinking skills to counteract that, right? So to actually question our beliefs, right? Because our brains are wired to, to prove what we already believe, right? They're wired to sort of keep finding evidence for the things that we already believe and ignoring everything else. So yeah, we should use our critical thinking. But again, let's say if we believe British people are racist, every time we see or encounter a racist British person, it will kind of stick in our memory, right? And every time we encounter a British person who's not a racist, we simply kind of write it off, right? We're like, oh well, they must be the exception. They're nice, but everyone else is just horrible. So, but we do that very very easily, right? And so that's kind of the way our brain works. And so stereotypes remain stable because of confirmation bias and because of the exception that proves the rule thing. And they talk about it in the article when they were talking about Germans and efficiency, right? We know that not every single German person is efficient. The Germans have a bit of a reputation for being very organized and efficient, but we know not every single person in the country is like that, right? So when we meet someone who does not fit the stereotype, it doesn't disprove what we believe, right? It's like, oh, they're the exception, right? But everyone else is. This is where we were yesterday. We had there was talking about 4 functions of prejudice. Yeah, let's look at those, okay? Let's look at those because those are interesting. I'm just going to pull this article up so I can see it. There it is. All right. First, oh, sorry, I want to say one more thing before I ask you this. Right. 4 functions of prejudice. This is what sociologists and anthropologists would call a functional perspective, okay? So sociologists that are into functional perspectives, they think that everything has a function, okay? Everything has a use, okay? So in society, the society we live in, everything that exists has a function. If it didn't have a function, it wouldn't exist, okay? And so poverty, for instance, a sociologist who was a functionalist would say, well, poverty must have some kind of use, right? There must be some sort of overall benefit to society or a benefit to some people in society for poverty to exist, right? And they would explain poverty using that kind of frame, right? Using that perspective. And so here it's the same thing. From a functional perspective, prejudice must have a function. It must have a use, right? It must be of some benefit to somebody, otherwise it wouldn't exist. And so what are they saying? What's the first kind of function of prejudice?
Experience.
Experience? What do you mean?
Prejudice like based on personal experience as well. It could be a function.
It can be. It's not one of the functions, but certainly you can develop a prejudice based on your personal experiences, which we'll talk about in just 2 minutes. Yes? Yes, yes. What's the first one?
Cognitive and emotional.
Say that one more time.
Cognitive and emotional.
Sort of, but that's kind of 2, and it's not the words they use. If you have to open up your article again, I can wait for you. It's okay. I don't mind. They pay me by the hour, so I don't mind waiting for you. I'm just kidding. They don't. But still.
It says in the article,
Uh,
cognitive and emotional.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was looking at they've got, in the next sentence, there's a number 1. That's kind of what I was thinking of.
Oh, knowledge function.
Knowledge function is number 1. Okay, and Rafay, what does that mean? Or what's it?
Explains experience.
Yeah. Okay.
Based on your experience, you think of someone, like, based on experience, for example, you have met someone just.
It's okay. I know where you're trying to go. What are they saying with this knowledge function? What's the function of prejudice and stereotypes?
You have met such a person before,
Yep.
and you've experienced it,
Yep.
so you think it's going to be the same as the other guy.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
it's like, if they're closely related, or if they're of the same ethnicity, culture, so you expect them to be the same as the other person.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a way of knowing about the world, right? And so we kind of take our experiences and we sort of sort them and organize them, right? And so we want to know what things are like, right? And think think how much of a brain saving sort of feature it is when you can sort of make these categorizations, right? I know what women are like, I know what men are like, on average, right? Of course, everyone's a little different, but yeah, I know what. Do you know what old people are like? Yeah, you know what old people are like. Some of them are different, right? But we kind of know what they're like. Do you know what kids are like? Yeah, right? Do you know what dogs are generally like? Yeah, cats? Yeah, right? We kind of know what these things are generally like. And it's a huge kind of space saving and process saving thing for the brain, right? Because every time you meet a dog, you don't have to figure out what is this animal, right? What is it like, right? We kind of know what dogs are like. And so when you see a dog, you're like, okay, I know what this thing is, right? It may defy your expectations, right? But we have a general idea. We know what teachers are generally like, right? We know what, parents are kind of supposed to be like, right? Of course, some of us have, well, all of us have weird parents, I'm sure, but for the most part, parents are parents, right? And so politicians, we know what politicians are like, right? So this is a huge kind of time-saving thing for our brain to be able to make categorizations like this, right? It has downsides, of course, like when we talk about stereotypes and prejudice and discrimination, but it's pretty handy, right? It's pretty handy to just kind of know what things are generally like. And then, you don't have to kind of figure everything out every time you encounter it. Know what I mean? Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, so one of the functions of prejudice is knowledge, right? It just helps us know about the world and kind of organize it into some sort of pattern, right, of what people are generally like. What's the second one? Okay, what's that about?
If you share the same attitude as someone else, you're rewarded.
Yeah.
If it's different, you adopt to it and you're rewarded.
Right. So so sharing the same attitudes as other people results in rewards, right? And sharing the wrong attitudes results in punishment, right? Can you think of an example of this? Like a real life example? How about any sports fans here? Yeah. Are there teams that should be cheered for and teams that should not be cheered for? Or if you cheer for those teams, people will make fun of you? Yeah, right? So for hockey, I haven't worn it in a while, but I have an Edmonton Oilers jersey because I'm from Edmonton. Edmonton is a reasonably terrible hockey team, and they have been for the past 20 years at least, even though they have a fantastic roster of players. They can't win a game to save their lives, right? So awful, disappointing, pathetic. Yeah. So again, what happens when I wear my Oilers jersey? People make a lot of comments, right? They're like, you can't wear that, right? This is Vancouver. People cheer for Vancouver here. They're a horrible team. What are you wearing that for? I'm not expressing the right values, right? So people kind of poke at me a little bit, right? They tease me or they make a comment, right? Because I am supposed to cheer for the Vancouver Canucks in Vancouver. Not that Vancouver is much better, but anyway. We don't need to go there. But that's an adjustive function, right? There are kind of values and ideas that I'm supposed to express, that society says I'm supposed to express, and when I express them, I get rewarded. If I had a Vancouver Canucks jersey, I would get a lot of positive comments, probably, right? But instead, I wear an Oilers jersey and people make fun of me, right? But again, with sports, it's not that big of a deal. But that's what it is, right? And so prejudices can work the same way, and I'll show you that in a few minutes, how that sort of expression of prejudice can lead to rewards, okay? Does that make sense though? Can you think of other examples of that? anything. Sports is certainly a good example.
Or
Football, okay.
Australia United, Manchester United, that we are mocked tomorrow.
You're mocked?
Yeah.
Okay. So
You're gonna break your leg on Friday, I say.
so Manchester United is not a team that should be cheered for, right? At least in your circle. Yeah, and so if you do, people will people will punish you, right? You're not expressing the right values, right? You're not expressing the right prejudices. And so if you do express the right prejudices, people will, accept you, right? They'll reward you. Can you think of anything else outside of sports?
Is it like, when you say a contract worker, like construction,
Okay.
if you're a constructor and your attitude is not as same as the boss, your wage will be less compared to the other.
Okay. Um, I guess that could be, that could be part of it, right? I guess in a workplace, if you don't express the correct values, then you may be punished for it, right? So yeah, that's okay. And you could probably extend that, Rafay, to like any sort of profession or any workplace. If you are not in alignment with the company's values or with the workplace's values, then people are gonna punish you a little bit, right? People are gonna try to get you to express the right ones. What's the third one?
Value expensive.
Right, what's value expressive function?
Giving attitude based on values.
Yeah, so that's a piece of identity, right? So the values you express are in part a reflection of who you are, right? So if you care deeply about the planet, right? You're worried about climate change, you're worried about pollution, you're worried about overpopulation and the oceans warming up and all of that stuff, then you might express to people your opinion on that, right? You may post a lot of Instagram posts about the environment, right? Or you might tweet a lot about the environment. You're expressing part of your identity and the things that you believe through these ideas, right? And so prejudices can be the same, right? People can express who they are through their ideas about the world, right? Positive or negative. Last one. Someone other than Rafay. He's working too hard.
Ego defensive function.
What's that?
Ego defensive function.
Sure, ego defensive function. And what's that about there, Yoya?
Is attitude that to protect struggle ego from getting self-criticism.
Yeah, so this is a little bit, this actually comes up in Mean Girls as well, right? Remember when Katie's at the final math competition and she goes to square off against the girl from the other team and she's like, oh, look at this, who picked out her clothes, look at her cheap lip gloss, all that stuff. That's kind of an ego defensive thing, right? She's tearing the other person down so that she can feel better, right? And of course in that moment she realizes that, oh, actually it doesn't make me any better as I tear her down, right? But do we do that, would you say? Do you sometimes, like, not out loud, but maybe in your head you kind of criticize other people and then you realize that, oh, I'm just trying to make myself feel better? Nobody ever does that? I'm the only one? I'm a horrible person?
Say that again.
Do you ever in your head like criticize other people and then realize that, oh, I'm just doing that so that I feel better about myself?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah, right? This is a very common thing to do, right? As Katie mentions, it's not really helpful, right? It's not really a great thing to do, but it's a very common thing for people to do. And so this is a function of prejudice as well, right? It allows people to feel good about themselves by tearing down others, right? Again, it's not good, it's not right, it's not useful, but it's something people do, right? It's something human beings do. Okay, that is good. Let me just see. Yeah. Can anyone explain this one to me? This Tajfel's social identity theory. Can anyone explain that to me? This is a bit of a tricky one. So Zartaj is saying there's something about identity here, which is true. There is an identity piece to what this social identity theory is. It's there in the name, so that's a hint. How would you explain this to me?
Is it like somewhat based on categorization?
Okay, it is based on group categorizations and how people are recognized in a group. So it has to do with groups, it has to do with identities. We're getting there. What's that?
What are in-groups and what are out-groups?
Good question. That's kind of a sociological term. So in-groups has to do with the group that you are in. Okay? So the in-group is your home group. Out-groups are groups that you're not in. Okay?
Self-esteem.
Right, it's connected a little bit to self-esteem, right, and how you think about yourself, right? Ooh, we're getting so close. Put these things together. Identity, group identity, self-esteem, in-groups and out-groups. Sorry, Victoria, what? The way a person sees themselves. Yes. Okay. So can somebody put all of these pieces together in a sentence? One word is not a sentence. Okay. There's a personal and social identity part to this that Simran says. Okay. I work for Columbia College, yes? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. So, when I talk to other people about Columbia College, not necessarily like my class and what I teach, but just the college as a whole, what kind of things do you think I say about it? Positive, what? Yeah, like why I work here, right? And what? Good things? Yeah. Yeah, do you think I say good things or do you think I say bad things?
You're in the environment.
Yeah.
Things you're talking about.
No, well, I'm not in the place I'm talking about. So I'm outside of the college talking to other people in the outside world.
You're working in the place. So you're basically part of the place.
I'm part of this. Yes, I am.
So if you talk good about it, basically it feels like you're working in the place.
Yeah. And what does that say about me?
That you're happy.
And that I'm good too. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the sort of essence of this social identity theory, right? Is that I belong to a group, an in-group, if you will, And if that group is good, then it reflects on me, then I'm good too, right? So we want to kind of do things to benefit the group that we're in and to, to improve that group, right? So when I go and when somebody asks me, "Oh, where do you work?" I work at Columbia College. "Oh, what's Columbia College?" I don't tell them that it's this, crappy international school in Vancouver, right? I don't say that. First of all, because I don't believe it. But secondly, I don't say that because then it looks like I'm crappy too, right? And I'm not. So I tell them that it's a great school full of great international students. And, we have this beautiful campus and, we have all kinds of intelligent and caring and hardworking instructors. And it's fantastic, right? It's a great place. And I do believe that. But in telling people that, how does that make me look? Great, right? It makes me look like I'm one of those people, one of those great hardworking people, right? Even though I might not be. But it still reflects well on me, right? So I want to do things to sort of increase the, I want to make the group look good and be good because that means that I'm part of that, right? Can you think of a Mean Girls example of this Tajfel's social identity theory? Say that one more time.
The group of plastic bags.
Yes. What about them?
Being a member of this group is could be good things or it's good for
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. There's something about yeah, maybe. What do you think?
So, I remember when Katie went to talk to her other good friend, the golf girl and the other girl.
Yeah, Janice and Damien. Yeah.
Janice and Damien. So whenever they used to criticize Virginia and the group, she used to say, "No, they're not like that," because she considers herself as a part of the group.
Right.
So if they were saying that they're bad, affecting her.
Right. So as she kind of was getting sucked into the plastic, she started to speak better of them, right? Because again, she was part of that group and she didn't want to, she didn't want to make her own group sound horrible, right? Because then it reflects on her. I was thinking about the rule where the girls all have to approve each other's outfits, right? If you go shopping, you have to get the approval of the group. Why is that? Well, because you represent the group and the group represents you, right? So if you want to be part of this group that is the most fashionable, you have to make sure that everyone is fashionable all the time, right? Hence, so many rules about appearance, right? What you may and may not wear, because if one person in the group dresses like a slob all the time, then everyone else will look worse, right? And so they kind of carefully control that because again, they know it reflects back on them, right? If the group is good, then you are good as well. Does that make sense? Okay. Alrighty, Roo. So, last question here for you. What do they suggest are some potential solutions to reduce prejudice? Non-competitive.
Basically, all the groups are equal, so there's no competition.
Right. So you've got to get groups on some sort of an equal footing, right? And if they can work towards a goal together, then that could be very useful, right? If everyone's on the same team, or if everyone needs to contribute their own thing, right? So they mention here in the article that you need to have people sort of integrating with each other and interacting, right? But you don't want people interacting in a way that reinforces the inequality, right? So if you went back decades, decades and decades in the United States, you would see that black Americans and white Americans were always interacting, right? They were living in separate neighborhoods, but they were always interacting, but they interacted in a way that reinforced the inequality, right? Black people worked for white people, right? They worked lower service level jobs. White people worked, sort of more kind of upper class jobs, right? So they interacted with each other, and in a way they were cooperating, but it was a way that reinforced the inequality that already existed, right? So you've got to find a way to put these people on an even kind of footing and get them working toward a common goal, right? But of course, the example they give in the article is, a boys' summer camp, and it's much easier to do at a summer camp than it is in a society, right? I think we all kind of understand that. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to review that. Do you want to take a quick break here before we? Okay, let's take 10. Come back. We'll talk a little. We'll tie up these three things, and then I'll give you some interesting examples of stereotypes and prejudice and discrimination, because we haven't talked about discrimination yet. Okay? All right.
How are we gonna talk about the
Oh yeah, I'll try to squeeze that in at the end too. Okay, and we are back. So, as we discussed, we've got stereotypes, right? They are reduced or simplified characteristics of a group. Basically, I see you with my eyes, and that visual information allows me to think that I know something about how you are, right? Sometimes that has to do with the group that you belong to. Sometimes it has to do with other factors. We'll talk about that in a second. Sorry, I just ran all the way up here. Again, these are knowledge function things, right? So they are knowing about the environment. Stereotypes usually don't have a strong positive or negative feeling attached to them, but they can be kind of positive or negative in what they say about people, right? So people are, a certain group of people are not trustworthy at all, right? That's kind of a negative stereotype, right? Canadians being very nice and polite, that's a positive one, right? And so you can have ones that are positive or negative, but they don't have feelings attached to them. But prejudice is where there is a feeling, right? So based on your stereotypes, based on your things that you think you know, you can have positive or negative feelings, right? And then finally there's discrimination. And discrimination is where you act on your prejudice, where you either do something or you don't do something based on those feelings that you have, okay? Let me give you an example of these three. What is this? This is a dog, right? Okay, 100%. Nice work. This is a dog. What are some of the things that we know about dogs? They're loyal. What else? They oh, they bark. Yeah. Okay, they bark. What else?
Better than cats.
They're better than cats. They're better than cats. What else? What else? They bite.
They always smile.
They always smile.
Smile.
Okay. Okay. What else?
They're loyal.
They what? They're so kind. They're loyal.
Good cuddlers.
They're good cuddlers. They will. Oh yeah, they will eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, right? So Reza says here that they are domestic. Yes, they are. They're the best pet a human can have. I guess that's your opinion. No, I'm teasing. They're loyal. We heard that they're loyal. Oh, they've got a big reputation for loyalty. They're affectionate. They love humans and they interact with humans quite well. That is true. They are playful. Okay, we've got all these, and these are all kind of stereotypical ideas about dogs, right? So we see this guy right here, right? This is a dog, and so we think we know some things about the dog, right? We're like, I bet he's loyal. I bet he's affectionate. I bet he loves to play, right? He probably likes to play tug of war with the rope or whatever. Or if I throw something, maybe he'll run after it, right? Maybe he's a good cuddler, right? He's a big dog. Maybe we can just cuddle in with him on the couch, right? Nice, right? We have all these positive stereotypes about dogs, but there's also negative ones as well, right? What are the negative stereotypes about dogs? They bite. We heard that. What else?
Bark at everything.
Yeah, they bark at everything, which can be annoying sometimes or can be scary, right? This is a reasonably large dog, yes? Yeah, so they've got big teeth. They can be intimidating. They can bark at you. They might actually bite you. Yeah, they could be aggressive, right? So there's negative stereotypes out there about dogs as well, right? Now, how many people here, you can just put up your hand, how many people here like dogs? Dogs for the win. Not over cats necessarily, but just like them. Okay? How many people here do not like dogs? Nobody? Because not everyone put up their hand before when they like them. So are you undecided? Are you shy? They're just like whatever. Okay, so no strong feeling, no strong opinion. Okay. So Basil's got his hand up. He says yes. Dogs for the win. So this is what I'm saying here is that there are a lot of stereotypes out there about dogs, right? But based on the stereotypes that you believed and based on, like Ben said, based on your personal experience, you will develop kind of a prejudice about dogs, right? And it seems like most of the people here have a positive prejudice about dogs, right? So when I show you this picture, do you see a nice, happy, cuddly, fun dog, or do you see a potential threat? What's that? You see a threat? Okay, so why do you see a threat? He looks kind of scary, right?
No.
No?
Doesn't scary.
Okay, so what is scary looking about this dog? What's that? He looks scary, right? He's a German Shepherd, right? Yeah, shepherds can be guard dogs, right? They can be quite fierce in some cases. They are quite large, right? So yeah, this can be a very intimidating dog, right? Daniel, why do you not see a threat here? Yeah, he just kind of looks. Yeah, he looks nice, doesn't he? Yeah, he looks like a nice dog, to me, to my eyes, right? But again, this is where your stereotypes are going to start to form a lens over what you see, right? So here we are in the room looking at the same picture, and yet we're seeing different things, right? Some people are seeing a threat, some people are seeing a big cuddly, cute dog, right? And actually, when I found this picture, I was just looking for a dog picture, but actually it's kind of the perfect picture because he's kind of right in the middle, right? I think you could see him as threatening or cuddly. You know, if it was a little like fluffy thing this big, it would not be intimidating, right? So we see different things and we have different prejudicial ideas about the dog, right? So when I see this dog, yeah, he looks cuddly. He looks like a nice dog, right? But not everyone will see him that way because other people hold different stereotypes about dogs. They have different experiences with dogs, right? They believe different things about dogs. And so you might have a positive prejudice towards the dog or a negative one. And depending on the prejudice you have, it might lead you to positively or negatively discriminate against the dog, right? So let's say this dog belongs to my friend, right? And my friend calls me up and says, hey, can I come over on the weekend and we'll hang out for a bit? Yeah, sure. Definitely come over. And yeah, and definitely bring the dog, right? In fact, if you don't bring the dog, don't come over. So that would be me positively discriminating in favor of the dog, right? I am telling him don't come over without the dog, right? On the other hand, if I had a negative prejudice towards dogs, he might call me and say, hey, Mike, do you want to hang out this weekend? And I might say, yeah, definitely come over, but don't bring that monster with you, right? If you show up here with the dog, I am not opening the door. So that would be I would be negatively discriminating against the dog, right? I have a negative prejudice towards the dog based on ideas that I have, and I'm going to deny the dog entry to my home, right? Of course, in this case, it might depend on the individual dog, right? Maybe this dog is a monster, right? Maybe this dog does like to bite, and I don't like to be bitten all the time. So, it could be down to the individual dog, but in general, the stereotypes you have and the sort of personal experience you have determines the beliefs you hold, the prejudices you have, and then the ways in which you might discriminate. Right? So again, I could positively or negatively discriminate against the dog based on my own prejudices, which are based on my own stereotypes. Make sense? There we go. Good boy. Thank you. So one of the interesting things about stereotypes and prejudice is that, again, they stay fairly stable over time, but also that some people are very comfortable expressing their prejudices in public, right? And so when we're talking about dogs and cats, it's not a very emotionally charged issue. Well, maybe for some people it is. But people can say that they love dogs or they hate dogs, or they love cats or they hate cats, and it's not really a big deal. But when you get into prejudices about human beings, it's a bit of a different story. But we can still see people expressing prejudices in kind of the world today, and they express them because they think that they are facts, right? So they mistake the stereotypes and the personal experiences they've had as factual information, okay? Let me give you an example. Let's look at this. This is a cover of Cosmopolitan magazine from a couple years ago. It is October 2018, so maybe a year and a half or so ago. The model on the cover here, her name is Tess Holliday. She is a popular model, and as you can see, Piers Morgan here is tweeting about this cover and expressing his opinion about it. Now, why do you think this was quite a controversy? Okay, people had a lot to say about this cover of Cosmo, and why do you think that is? Why were people talking about it? Yeah, she's not kind of the usual kind of model that you see on the cover of Cosmo. Who do you normally see? Who do you normally see on Cosmo? Say again? Kendall Jenner, right? Or models that look like her, right? We normally see women who are slim, right? And Tess is not that. And so this cover kind of caused a bit of a stir. It got people talking about it, and Piers Morgan is one of the people who is talking. And so as you can see here, he says that, or maybe you can't see it, but he says that as Britain battles an ever worsening obesity crisis, this is the new cover of Cosmo. Apparently we're supposed to view it as a huge step forward for body positivity. What a load of old baloney. Do you know what that means? Kind of, yeah. Yeah, bologna is like a lunch meat, but it's not a very high quality one. But yeah, that's what it means basically. What a bunch of BS, basically. The cover is just as dangerous and misguided as celebrating size 0 models. Okay. So, what's happening here? What's happening here? Yeah. Okay, so he's expressing his opinion here, and he's basically saying one thing is as bad as the other, right? So a bunch of models who are underweight or maybe dangerously underweight is just as bad as Tess here, who is somewhat overweight, right? Now, why is he saying what he is saying? What is his motivation, would you say? How do you mean?
He's trying to say it's okay if you're overweight. Or he's also trying to say, well, it's a huge step forward positivity. So it can be like, it's a huge step towards making people be comfortable with their body.
No, I think he's saying that sarcastically. I think he's saying that this is supposed to be a huge step forward for body positivity, but he's saying it kind of sarcastically. He's saying, no, this isn't that. It's actually dangerous. That's what he's trying to say.
So he's like trying to say that people should not be obese, as it's as high risk
I think so. I think so. He has cited the ever worsening obesity crisis. So I think he is making this. He's framing this as a health issue, right? And he's saying that he's basically saying this woman is unhealthy, and putting her on the cover of Cosmo encourages other people to be unhealthy too. I think. But why is he saying this? Or I'm going to ask you two questions at once, which is not fair. Why is he saying this? But also, do you believe him? Do you believe that he's saying what he's saying and why he's saying it?
This is the reason.
Right. So he's, yeah.
So that's based on the other prejudice, but we talked about absorbing others' behavior, and what people see this and they will like very unhappy. They just think that the policy in five countries that are five countries great for the city would be something like that.
Yeah. Yes. Let's take a step back. Are there stereotypical ideas about people who are overweight? What are they?
Unhealthy.
Right? They're what? Lazy. What else?
Ugly.
Ugly. What else? Sorry? Smelly. Okay, maybe. Maybe. What else?
That's right.
Oh yes. They're slow, probably physically and mentally, right? Sorry, what?
That's right.
They're shy. Okay, maybe, yeah. What else? Yeah, they're inactive. Do they care about their health? No, right? So there are these stereotypical ideas floating around out there about people who are overweight, right? They're lazy, they're slow, maybe they smell because they don't wash properly. You know, maybe they're kind of dumb or they don't care about their health, right? And so we have these kind of ideas about them. And so my question to you is he expressing his prejudice and pretending it's about health, or is he just really concerned for the health of the nation? Hmm. I guess that's true. He's not talking about Tess specifically, maybe, or he's not naming her, right? He's talking about this is the cover, and he's kind of taking issue more with the magazine than with her. I wonder. So Basil says he agrees with what he's saying. Zartaj doesn't quite believe him. Yeah, this is a tricky one. This is a tricky one. And sometimes these things are tricky specifically because of context, right? So again, there are there are negative stereotypes out there about people who are overweight, right? And there is a health element to that conversation, right? But let's think about another health issue that you might have. So if you have cancer, okay, people with cancer, what are our stereotypical ideas about people with cancer? Okay, so the treatments make them lose their hair, right? But what about their kind of personal characteristics? Because we said that people who are overweight are slow and lazy and stupid and they don't care about their health and they just eat and eat. They have no discipline, right? No self-control. They just eat bags and bags of Oreos. I don't know. We've all done it. So, but again, with cancer patients, do we have those same stereotypes? No. What's that?
Weak.
Yeah, but they're weak because of the treatment, right? But there's really nothing about, people who have cancer. That's kind of it, right? That we don't have any stereotypes about them because they just have cancer. People who are overweight aren't just people who are overweight. They are all of those things that we mentioned, right? So there's kind of another context to the criticism of her, right? So again, and I'm not sure, you can make up your own mind on this, but is this a health issue or is he expressing prejudice against people who are overweight? Because you don't have to go too far. Sorry, I'm just going to jump ahead here. Oh shoot, where are my other slides? Okay. I don't know why they're not in there. You don't have to go too far to find people who will say very hurtful things about people who are overweight, right? There's a lot of fat shaming out there, right? Particularly directed at women, right? Not exclusively, but for the most part. And so, how is it, what's my question for you here? Yeah, do you think, is this him expressing a prejudice or is this him expressing an opinion about the health of the nation?
I think it's a bit of both.
Bit of both? Sorry?
I think for the
Health of the nation, okay. Other opinions? What do you think?
Think about
Sorry? What do you think that Piers Morgan here is simply making a statement about health, or do you think he's expressing his prejudice against people who are overweight? Do you think that there were other people that commented on this cover and said much more hurtful things?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right? So Piers Morgan is not the sort of most harshly worded criticism of this cover. But let me give you a little bit more and I'll ask you again, okay? So one of the things that we should remember in sort of the context of this cover is that the beauty and entertainment industry in the West is massive, right? And so these numbers are a little outdated, I'm sure, but $500 billion is a massive amount of money, right? And health and wellness has certainly grown since then, right? So all the sort of supplements you can buy and, gym memberships and, exercise training programs and all that stuff, that's a huge, huge industry. There's a lot of money to be made. And the idea they're selling you, of course, is that beauty is a certain thing, right? Beauty is a certain way. And how do these industries define beauty? What is beautiful?
Tall and slim.
Yeah, tall, slim, what else?
Symmetrical face.
Yeah, faces that are symmetrical, what else? What's that? The shape? A certain kind of shape to the body? Yes. Yeah. What else? What about skin?
Even complexion.
Yeah, an even complexion. Sorry, Poom, what did you say? Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, did you? Sorry, what did you say?
Light
Yeah, lighter skin has been traditionally seen as more beautiful, right? What else? Anything else? Clear skin. What about hair?
Long, long.
Yeah, for women, yeah, definitely long. Well, for men sometimes too. Long hair. What's that? On the head?
For men, beard.
Oh yeah, sometimes, yeah. Beards kind of come and go in fashion, but yeah. So we have all these ideas that we are sold in terms of beauty, and you know, overweightness is usually not seen as beautiful, right? And so for Tess to be on the cover of this magazine that usually shows a bunch of slim models is something, right? That's something different. And the fact that he's stepped up to criticize this, I'm not sure, right? Did he step up and criticize all the other slim models that were on the cover of Cosmo for years before? I didn't check, but I kind of doubt it, right? Yeah, and so this kind of idea that we have these negative stereotypes about people who are overweight means that, shoot, I'm losing my train of thought here, guys. Help me out. What am I trying to say? I'm like trying to grasp at words and I'm losing them, and what am I trying to say here?
You repeated it.
Well, no, because I forgot what I'm talking about now.
We talked about overweight people falling into those stereotypes and then
Yes, yes. So,
Stereotypes and prejudice go hand in hand.
yeah, that's too cliche. That's Okay. Lost it. Okay. Let's take a step back. So, is there anything wrong with this cover?
No.
Right. Yes.
I think
What's that?
something's wrong because mentions like UK this price. Then out of nowhere they have to put this out. So it's like encouraging them to do this.
Right, and that's Piers Morgan's. That's kind of one of the things he's saying, right? He seems to be worried that.
Instead of encouraging them to lose weight.
Yeah, so he's worried that when people see Tess Holliday, oh, I guess fat is beautiful now. Now I can just sit around and eat and I can still be beautiful, right? But is the other way damaging as well? Like when you show all of these slim models?
Yeah.
Why?
People start to get like
People, yeah, so it's either way you kind of go here. It's true that if you define beauty in terms of extremes, then a lot of people don't fit into that category, right? So when you see all of these Cosmo models, you know, those girls are like one in, you know, they're like one in a million, right? Not many people are built the way that they are, right? They're, even if you look at their bone structure, right? They are built much more slimly, and most women will not be able to attain that size or that shape because they're just not physically built that way. You can't diet your way into looking like a Victoria's Secret model, right? Because everybody's built a little bit different. And yet we define beauty very narrowly, right? Beauty can only be really this thing. And everyone else has to just kind of work hard in order to fit the ideal, right? And if you don't, the further away you are from the ideal, not only are you less beautiful, but there's all these negative stereotypes attached to you, right? That you are lazy, that you're undisciplined, that you're maybe unintelligent, and you just don't care about your health, right? So there's something to be said for not fitting into the sort of standards of beauty that Cosmo usually puts forward, but also, you know, the further away you get from that, the more people look at you poorly, right? We have negative stereotypes about people who are unattractive or who are overweight or who are not dressed very well, right? And again, the idea here is this encouraging people to be obese?
No. Just encouraging the people that are already obese, like, say it's fine.
Yeah, right? It kind of, here's a fancy word for you. It validates them, right? It validates them. So if someone is on the cover that looks like them, right? And again, if you find her beautiful, fantastic, right? If you don't find her beautiful, whatever, right? And, you know, there's a whole other thing to be said about, you know, judging women's bodies, and that's another conversation. But, you know, I don't know that this encourages anyone to become obese, right? And maybe the reason it doesn't, is because does that standard of beauty, the slim standard of beauty, still exist?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does her cover really change that? Not very much, right? I mean, it does make a little bit more room for, you know, women with different bodies, right? Which is good, but it doesn't really change the standard of beauty. The standard of beauty still is what it is. I haven't seen Cosmo this month. It may not shock you, but I don't read Cosmo. I haven't seen it this month, but I assume there is a reasonably modelly looking woman on the cover, I would assume, right? And so Tessa's cover doesn't really change anything, you know, in terms of society, but it does make a little more room for people to feel a little bit good about themselves, right? Even if they don't fit into that sort of super slim mold. And again, I guess it's up to you to decide whether in the context of, you know, a beauty standard that is quite slim, right, in Western society, and in a standard where there's a huge beauty and entertainment industry trying to convince you that this is what beautiful looks like and that Tess is not that. In the context of all of that, is Pierce Morgan's comment about health, or is it him expressing his prejudice against people who are overweight? And again, I don't need an answer on that. You can think about it on your own. But I don't know, right? I'm not sure that he. Yeah. I'll leave you to figure it out on your own. Okay, we've just got a couple minutes left. What I would like to, maybe what I'll do is I'll hand you back your quizzes from yesterday. Online people, I still have to post the grades on Student Portal, so you won't see your grades yet, but I'll hand them back here in class. I will say, not so much the online ones, but for the in-class ones, I was a little bit disappointed. I know the first question was difficult for people in terms of the critical theory thing, but I was open to a lot of different answers, but I didn't really see them. And if you recall, the two things that we wanted to remember about critical theory was that the meaning of information, right? So knowledge is not simply a bunch of facts, right? It has political and social meaning attached to it. And there was that whole thing about knowledge being counterintuitive, right? There were other things you could have said for that as well. Those are the two things I was looking for, but people seemed a little bit confused about that, which was okay, because I understand that first part is a little bit difficult. I was a little bit disappointed with the socialization question, Because a lot of people said that it was when they use the definition of like when people socialize, right? Like when they talk to each other about their interests, kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, that's one definition of it. But the other definition is the one that we talked about, right? Which is where people are trained in the norms and values and beliefs of their society. That's what we're referring to. So I was a little bit disappointed there. Some of the other questions were a little bit better done, but I hopefully we'll be a little more on track next time. But are there things that I can do to help us score better on quizzes?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Easy questions.
Easy questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I thought that's what I was doing. I thought those were easy questions. So, yeah.
So what we do in other classes is for the quizzes, give it a day before, and then we hand it to you the day later.
I give it to you the day before, and then you,
And we hand it to you a day later.
a day later. That doesn't tell me anything about what you know. That tells me what you can copy, which I suspect you can copy anything I put in front of you. Yes? Okay, so we already know that. I've saved us a step.
Maybe a quick revision, like a week
Beforehand?
before, the day before the quiz.
Okay, well I can do that, but I kind of like to leave it to you. I kind of feel like that's, you know,
Our responsibility.
I kind of feel like it is. I kind of feel like it's your responsibility. I don't. I could leave some space before the next quiz for if you've done your studying to ask some last minute questions.
Yeah, that'll work.
That I can do. I don't want to sort of take on the responsibility to, you know, to study for you. I think that is your job. But I'm open to doing a little Q&A beforehand. That would work for me. Okay, yeah, I'm not interested in doing less questions. Less questions will tell me less. More questions tell me a little bit more, and I think 5 is manageable. They could guide us on how to prepare for your quizzes and exams.
Pay attention.
Well, yeah, I think, you know, one of the things that, I guess we've only got a minute left here. One of the things that, you know, I might be wrong about this, but I kind of think that, you know, like because you've been in school for 11 or 12 years, my stereotype, my preconceived idea is that you kind of know what you're doing, right? In terms of studying and doing your work, and I feel like you kind of know how to do that. Now, I might be wrong, and if I am wrong, it would be nice for me to know that, but I kind of feel like you guys should know how to sort of do your stuff. But again, I might be incorrect on that. Yeah.
I would like for the quiz, you play a Kahoot game. The questions.
Oh, Kahoot game. Maybe. This class is a little tricky for Kahoot games because it's not so trivia based. It's kind of the things are a little more. They don't fit into a little square very well, but I'll consider that. Okay, so generally, okay, so I'll end it there because we're out of time. I'll give you your quiz back before you leave here, and again, online people, I'll post the grades a little bit later. Yeah, and then I'll see you tomorrow, okay? So have a good afternoon. Online people, we'll see you later, and Awais, I'll talk to you in just a minute, okay? All right, bye.